This is grade 12 English. This is the video of part 4 of the lesson, the third level by Jack Finney. Part 1 video is about the introduction part. Part 2 video is about the summary of the lesson and the character sketches. Part 3 video is about line by line explanation of the text. So this video is the continuation of the line by line explanation of the text. Okay, shall we go? Before moving into the 6th paragraph, we have a small recap of first 5 paras. Okay. Here is a mind map of first 5 paragraphs of the lesson. Detailed explanation of these paragraphs has been given in the last video. There are some important points to remember, so that I am going to recall you. Okay, just I am going to read the points. So first paragraph, the presidents of the New York Central and the New York, New Haven and Hartford Railroad. What the presidents of these railroads they did? They swore what? In Grand Central Station, there were only 2 levels. But for Charlie at Grand Central Station, so according to him, it had 3rd level because he had been to the 3rd level. So next, psychiatrist, Charlie's friend. So when Charlie discussed about the 3rd level with his friend, psychiatrist friend, he told that was because of waking dream wish fulfillment. That is hallucination. Okay, daydream. Then this is because he wanted to escape from modern harsh reality. So because of war, that insecurity, fear, then worry. So because these are the harsh realities of modern world. So psychiatrist, he told first one, waking dream wish fulfillment. Then another point is Charlie wanted to escape from the modern harsh reality. Okay. Second paragraph, stamp collection. Charlie had a hobby, that was stamp collection. His friend psychiatrist, he told that stamp collection was a temporary refuge. But Charlie told his grandfather also collected stamps. But his grandfather, in those days, he led a peaceful life. So according to Charlie, stamp collection would not be a temporary refuge. And in second paragraph, about first day cover is given. So what is that first day cover? Whenever US released new stamps, they issued blocks of 4. What is it, blocks of 4? In the blocks, there were 4 stamps. Okay, that is blocks of 4. And President Roosevelt also collected stamps. That means President Roosevelt also had the hobby of collecting stamps. Third paragraph, Charlie, he worked late at the office, so he was hurried to home. Then he decided to take the subway from Grand Central Station because it was faster than bus. Okay. Para 4. Charlie, 31 years old. Then he wore tan gabardine suit and a straw hat with a fancy band. And he wanted to get home to Louisa. Okay. So tan gabardine suit, then about a straw hat. So we have discussed a lot. So in 4th paragraph, it is given Charlie, 31 years old. He wore a tan gabardine suit and a straw hat with fancy band. Then he wanted to get home to Louisa. Para 5. So Charlie went into Grand Central Station from Vanderbilt Avenue. Then he went down the steps to reach the first level. So in first level, people could get the trains like 20th century. So 20th century is the name of the train. Then he walked down another flight of stairs. Then he could reach second level. So in second level, trains like suburban trains, they leave in second level. Then Charlie entered into an arched doorway. Then he got lost. So before this, so many times he went to Grand Central Station. So many times he lost his way. So once he came out of the lobby of Roosevelt Hotel, and second time he came out of an office building on 46th Street, that is 3 blocks away. So this is what we have discussed in the last video. So first 5 paragraphs. I hope you will be thorough in the first 5 paragraphs. Okay, let's move on to next paragraphs. Okay. Sometimes I think Grand Central is growing like a tree, pushing out new corridors and staircases like roots. There's probably a long tunnel that nobody knows about feeling its way under the city right now, on its way to Times Square and maybe another to Central Park. So I'll read again. Sometimes I think Grand Central is growing like a tree, pushing out new corridors and staircases like roads. There's probably a long tunnel that nobody knows about feeling its way under the city right now, on its way to Times Square and maybe another to Central Park. Children, have you understood what is given? So here Grand Central is like a tree. So Grand Central Station is like a tree. Just you imagine, okay? So Grand Central Station is like a tree. Corridors, staircases and tunnels are its roots. So these roots are growing every day. So what is that? Grand Central Station is like a tree. Okay. Corridors, staircases and tunnels are its roots. So these roots are growing every day. So what are the roots here? Corridors, staircases and tunnels. What is a tree? Here Grand Central Station is like a tree. So these roots are growing every day. So there are roots that nobody knows about it. There are roots, that means there are some corridors, okay, that nobody knows about it. Roots here, what are the roots here? Corridors, staircases and tunnels. There are roots that nobody knows about it. It is a feeling among general public. So what is a feeling among general public? That there is a tunnel, that means there is underground, there is an underground and it goes up to Times Square and another may be going towards Central Park. So the general feeling among public is what? There was a tunnel, that means there was an underground and it goes up to Times Square and another may be going towards Central Park. Okay, so this is given in this paragraph. Sometimes I think Grand Central is growing like a tree, pushing out new corridors and staircases like roads. Have you understood, children? So here just Grand Central Station is like a tree and corridors, staircases and tunnels are its roots. So these roots, they are growing every day. And there are some roots that nobody knows about it. Okay. And a general feeling among public is that there is a tunnel, that means there is an underground that goes up to Times Square, and another may be going towards Central Park. Okay, and maybe because for so many people through the years, Grand Central has been an exit, a way of escape. Maybe that's how the tunnel I got into. But I never told my psychiatrist friend about that idea. So, and maybe because for so many people through the years, Grand Central has been an exit, a way of escape. Maybe that's how the tunnel I got into. But I never told my psychiatrist friend about that idea. So, what is given here? So, during previous years, so many people have come out of the Grand Central Railway Station. So, here in the text is given through the years, that means during previous years. So, what happened previous years? So many people, they have come out of the Grand Central Railway Station. So, probably it can be considered, it can be, here what is that it? Grand Central Railway Station. So, probably it can be considered a way to escape. As so many people, they have come out of the Grand Central Railway Station, it can be considered a way to escape. So, certainly that was the reason he entered into the tunnel. Okay. So, that was the reason Charlie entered into a tunnel. But what? He cannot tell this thought to his psychiatrist friend. So, but he cannot tell this thought to his psychiatrist friend. So, what is given here? During previous years, so many people, they have come out of the Grand Central Railway Station. So, it can be considered a way to escape. So, probably that was the reason Charlie entered into a tunnel. But he cannot tell this thought to his psychiatrist friend. Okay. Next paragraph. The corridor I was began angling left and slanting downward, and I thought that was wrong. But I kept on walking. All I could hear was the empty sound of my own footsteps, and I did not pass a soul. The corridor I was in began angling left and slanting downward, and I thought that was wrong, but I kept on walking. All I could hear was the empty sound of my own footsteps, and I didn't pass a soul. So, here what is given? The corridor he was walking into what started turning to one side. So, the corridor he was walking into started turning to one side and slope downwards. The corridor I was, here I refers to whom? Charlie. I was in began. I was in began. In began means walking. Okay. The corridor he was walking. In began means walking. Angling left, that means bending left, and slanting downward, that means sloping downward. So the corridor Charlie was walking started turning to one side and sloping downwards. Okay. And he thought that he was moving in a wrong corridor. So he thought that he was moving in a wrong corridor, but he continued to walk. Then what happened? He would only hear sounds of his own steps. He would only hear sounds of his own steps. There was echo of his footsteps because the corridor was empty. So there was echo of his footsteps. Why? Because the corridor was empty. Then he did not cross anybody in the corridor. So here it is given, I did not pass a soul. I did not pass. Pass means here cross anybody. Okay. So the corridor I was in began. The corridor I means here Charlie was walking. In began is walking. Charlie was walking, angling left, bending left, and slanting downward, sloping downward. And I thought that was wrong. And Charlie, he thought that he was moving in a wrong corridor. Okay, but I kept on walking. But he continued to walk. All I could hear was the empty sound of my own steps. So he would only hear sounds of his own steps. Then I heard that sort of hollow roar ahead. That means open space and people. Here sound of my own steps, and I did not pass a soul. So here there was echo of his footsteps because the corridor was empty, and I didn't pass a soul. So he didn't cross anybody in the corridor. Okay. Next, then I heard that sort of hollow roar ahead. That means open space and people talking. The tunnel turned sharp left. I went down a short flight of stairs and came out on the third level at Grand Central Station. Then I heard that sort of hollow roar ahead. That means open space and people talking. The tunnel turned sharp left. I went down a short flight of stairs and came out on the third level at Grand Central Station. So what is given here? Then I heard that sort of hollow roar. Here Charlie, he heard that sort means a kind of hollow roar. Roar here sound. That means in open space he heard a kind of sound. Okay. And he heard a noise and discussion of people, which indicated that corridor was about to end into an open space. Okay. So he heard a kind of hollow roar, that sound, a noise and discussion of. Here hollow roar, it means here a noise and discussion of people. Okay. That means which indicated that sound, hollow roar, ahead means in front. Okay. So in front of him he heard a kind of sound, hollow roar, a noise and discussion of people. That means a corridor was about to end into an open space. Then the tunnel took a sharp turn to left. Okay. So the tunnel turned sharp left. So the tunnel took a sharp turn to left. Then he walked down some stairs. I went down a short flight of stairs. That means stairs which have some steps, fewer steps. Okay. Then he walked down some stairs. Then he came out of the tunnel and reached the third level of Grand Central Station. So he heard a noise and discussion of people. That means the corridor was about to end into an open space. Then the tunnel took a sharp turn to left. Then he walked down some stairs. Then he came out of the tunnel and reached the third level of Grand Central Station. Have you understood, children? For just a moment, I thought I was back on the second level. But I saw the room was smaller. There were fewer ticket windows and train gates, and the information booth in the center was wood and old looking. For just a moment, I thought I was back on the second level, but I saw the room was smaller. There were fewer ticket windows and train gates, and the information booth in the center was wood and old looking. So, what is given here? Just for a moment, Charlie thought that he had come back to the second level. So, just for a moment, he thought he had come back to the second level. But he noticed, what did he notice? That rooms at this level were smaller. Rooms at this level were smaller. Number of ticket counters were less. Okay, there were fewer ticket windows. So there were smaller number of centers, and then number of gates leading to platforms were less. So what is given here? But I saw the room was smaller. There were fewer ticket windows and train gates. So, but he noticed after reaching the level, he thought that he had come back to second level. And he noticed that rooms at this level were smaller. Number of ticket counters were less, and number of gates leading to platforms were less. Then the information booth in the center was wood. What is that information booth? Enquiring window. Okay, enquiry window. So, enquiry booth. The information booth at the center was made of wood. Okay, then it was looking old. So, the enquiry booth, enquiring window at the center was made of wood and it was looking old. So, here what is given? Just for a moment, Charlie thought that he had come back to the second level. Okay. Then he noticed that rooms at this level were smaller. The number of ticket counters were less. The number of gates leading to platforms were less. The information booth, that means enquiring booth at the center, was made of what? Was made of wood, and it was looking old. Okay, and the man in the booth wore a green eyeshade and a long black sleeve protectors. The lights were dim and sort of flickering. Then I saw why. They were open flame gas lights. I repeat, and the man in the booth wore a green eyeshade and long black sleeve protectors. The lights were dim and sort of flickering. Then I saw why. They were open flame gas lights. So here the person sitting at the information booth. So already is given information booth at the center was made of wood and it was looking old. The person sitting at the information booth had greenish eyes. What type of eyes he had? Greenish eyes. His sleeve protectors. What is it? Sleeve protectors? That means a garment worn on forearm. Okay, so sleeve protector is a garment worn on forearm. So his sleeve protectors were long and black color. His eyes, whose eyes? The person sitting at the information booth had greenish eyes and his sleeve protectors were long. And what color it is? It black color. Then the lights were dim and it was flickering. What is meant by flickering? Shine unsteadily. So the lights were dim and a sort of flickering. Sort means a kind. Flickering means here the light was flickering, shone unsteadily. So then I saw why. Then the reason was the lamps were of gas operated burner type. The lamps were of gas operated burner type without protection against air. Okay, that means open flame type lamps. So because of this, the lights were dim and it was flickering. So the lamps were of gas operated burner type without protection against air. That means open flame type lamps. So here what is given? The person sitting at the information booth had greenish eyes and his sleeve protectors were long and black color. The lights were dim and it was flickering. It shone unsteadily. Then he understood why the light was flickering, because the lamps were of gas operated burner type without protection against air. That means open flame type lamps. That's why the light was flickering. Okay. Next paragraph. There were brass spittoons on the floor, and across the station a glint of light caught my eye. A man was pulling a gold watch from his vest pocket. He snapped open the cover, glanced at his watch and frowned. There were brass spittoons on the floor, and across the station a glint of light caught my eye. A man was pulling a gold watch from his vest pocket. He snapped open the cover, glanced at his watch and frowned. So there were brass spittoons. So spittoons, what is it spittoons? Have you remembered what I said? Spittoons, a bowl for spitting. Okay. So there were brass spittoons on the floor. The spittoons placed on the floor were made of brass. Brass spittoons, spittoons made of brass. The spittoons placed on the floor were made of brass, and across the station a glint of light caught my eye. What is that glint? It means flash of light. Okay, a flash of light coming from the other side of the platform struck his eyes. Caught my eye. My eye here, whose eye? Charlie's eye. Okay, so there were brass spittoons placed on the floor, and a flash of light coming from the other side of the platform that struck his eyes. A man was pulling a gold watch from his vest pocket. A man was pulling, it means was taking out his gold watch from his front pocket of his shirt. The man was taking out his gold watch from his front pocket of his shirt. He snapped open the cover. So he opened the cover of the watch. He looked at the watch to note the time, and he made an angry face. And he glanced at his watch and frowned. Frowned means make an angry face. Here it is given frowned, made an angry face. So the man who was taking out his gold watch from his front pocket of his shirt, he opened the cover of the watch, and he looked at the watch for what? To note the time, and he made an angry face. Here that such spittoons, that bowl for spitting, no, such spittoons and watches, they were common during olden times. Okay, olden days it was very common that spittoons and watches. So the spittoons placed on the floor were made of brass. In a flash of light coming from the other side of the platform struck his eyes. Whose eyes? Charlie's eyes. Then a man was taking out his gold watch from his front pocket of his shirt. Then he opened the cover of the watch, and he looked at the watch for what? To note the time, and he made an angry face. He wore a derby hat, a black 4-button suit with the tiny lapels, and he had a big black handlebar moustache. Then I looked around and saw that everyone in the station was dressed like 1890 something. I never saw so many beards, sideburns, and fancy mustaches in my life. So, he wore a derby hat, a black 4-button suit with the tiny lapels, and he had a big black handlebar mustache. Then I looked around and saw that everyone in the station was dressed like 1890 something. I never saw so many beards, sideburns, and fancy mustaches in my life. He was wearing derby hat. So what is a derby hat? So derby hat, it is round and hard with a narrow brim. Brim means the top edge. Okay, edge of the hat. It is round and hard. So that is derby hat. He was wearing derby hat. Then his coat had 4 buttons and tiny lapels. Lapels means flaps. So here lapels, the fold of the front of a coat, that is usually continuation of the collar, that is lapels. Okay, we can say flaps. So the man was wearing derby hat. His coat had 4 buttons and small flaps. Then he had a big black mustache of handlebar type. Okay. Then when Charlie looked around the station, he noticed that dresses of everybody was of 1890s. Okay, he had never seen so many beards, sideburns. What is it, sideburns? Hair grown each side of the face in front of ears. That is sideburns. And fancy mustaches, different styles of mustaches in his life. So he was wearing derby hat. His coat had 4 buttons and small flaps. Then he had a big black mustache of what type? Handlebar type. When Charlie looked around the station, he noticed that dresses of everybody was of 1890s. He had never seen so many beards, sideburns, and different styles of mustache in his life. So he wore a derby hat. I think I have understood what is the derby hat. Then black 4-button suit, that is coat. Then with the tiny lapels, small flaps. Then he had what type of mustache? Big black handlebar mustache. When he looked around, what did Charlie see around him? He saw that everyone in the station, okay, he saw around the station the dresses of everybody was of 1890s. Then Charlie had never seen what? So many beards, sideburns, and fancy mustaches in his life. What is it? Fancy mustaches? Different style of mustaches. Okay, he had never seen so many beards, sideburns, and fancy mustaches. A woman walked in through the train gate. She wore a dress with the leg of mutton sleeves and skirts to the top of her high buttoned shoes. Back of her, out on the tracks, I caught a glimpse of locomotive, a very small Courier and Ives locomotive with a funnel shaped stack. A woman walked in through the train gate. She wore a dress with leg of mutton sleeves and skirts to the top of her high buttoned shoes. Back of her, out on the tracks, I caught a glimpse of a locomotive, a very small Courier and Ives locomotive with a funnel shaped stack. Have you understood what is given here? So Charlie, he saw a woman came from one of the gates of the platform. She was wearing a special type of dress called a leg of mutton. So here it is what is given was wearing with the leg of mutton sleeves. So in previous video have given the picture of this dress. So her skirts was up to her shoes. The shoes were extending above ankles and it had large buttons. Then behind her, behind the woman on the railway track, Charlie could see the engine of the train. It was a small engine manufactured by Courier and Ives. It's the name of the company, Courier and Ives. That small engine was manufactured by this company. So then its stack. So with a funnel shaped stack it is given. Okay, stack means exhaust pipe. Okay, it is a pipe from where smoke comes out. So its stack was funnel shaped. So a woman came from one of the gates of platform. So she was wearing a special type of dress. What is the name of the dress? Leg of mutton. Then her skirts was up to her shoes. So what type of shoes she was wearing? The shoes were extending above ankles. And what it had? It had large buttons. So behind her on the railway track, what did Charlie could see? He could see the engine of the train. It was a small engine which was manufactured by Courier and Ives. And its stack, that exhaust pipe, was funnel shaped. Have you understood, children? Okay. And then I knew. To make sure, I walked over to a newsboy and glanced at the stack of papers at his feet. It was the world, and the world hasn't been published for years. So, and then I knew. What is that? And then I knew. And then Charlie understood that he had traveled back into the time. Then Charlie understood that he had traveled back into the time. So, because everyone in the station was dressed like 1890s, no? So, from this he understood that he had traveled back into the time. So, to make sure about it, he walked. Okay, he went to a person. He walked to a person, a newsboy who was selling newspaper. He looked at the newspaper which was piled on the floor. The person was standing, the newsboy was standing, and the name of the newspaper was The World. Name of the newspaper was The World. This newspaper used to get published many years ago. This newspaper used to get published many years ago, not now, many years ago it was used to get published. So now here what is given? Charlie understood that he had traveled back into the time. To make sure about it, what did he do? He went to a person. Who's that? Newsboy who was selling newspaper. Then he looked at the newspaper. Charlie looked at the newspaper which was piled on the floor. Pile means heaped. Okay. The person was standing. The newsboy was standing, and the name of the newspaper was The World. So this newspaper used to get published many years ago. The lead story said something about President Cleveland. I found that front page since in the public library files, and it was printed June 11, 1894. So here what is that lead story? Lead story means main article. The main article in the newspaper was about President Cleveland. So from the front page of the newspaper, he came to know that the date was June 11, 1894. Okay, so from this he made sure that he had traveled back into the time. And then he had found this front page already in the public library files. So here the lead story, the main article in the newspaper was about whom? About President Cleveland. So already we have discussed President Roosevelt, then President Cleveland, now President Cleveland. So in the newspaper, The World, the main article was about President Cleveland. So from the front page of the newspaper, Charlie came to know that the date was June 11, 1894. So before this, he had already found it in the public library files. So in the previous video, the other personalities, about other personalities, I have given 3 names. So we have discussed about 2, President Roosevelt and President Cleveland. President Roosevelt, in the second paragraph, it is given about stamp collection. President Roosevelt also had the habit of stamp collection. Here President Cleveland, so about him, the main article in the newspaper, it was given. Okay. I turned toward the ticket windows, knowing that here on the 3rd level at Grand Central, I could buy tickets that would take Louisa and me anywhere in the United States we wanted to go. In the year 1894, and I wanted 2 tickets to Galesburg, Illinois. So I turned toward the ticket windows. So here Charlie, he went to the ticket windows, knowing that here means the 3rd level, on the 3rd level. He knew that from 3rd level, he could buy tickets anywhere in the US. Then in the year 1894, that means it was the year 1894. And then he wanted to purchase 2 tickets to go to Galesburg, Illinois. So he wanted to buy 2 tickets that would take Louisa. So 2 tickets for Louisa and for him. For him here, Charlie. So he wanted to get 2 tickets to go to where? To Galesburg, Illinois. I turned toward the ticket windows, knowing that here means on the 3rd level. 3rd level where? At Grand Central. So Charlie went to ticket windows. He knew that from 3rd level he could buy tickets anywhere in the US. I could buy tickets that would take Louisa and me anywhere in the United States we wanted to go. So he knew that what? He could buy tickets to anywhere in the US. Okay. Then in the year 1894, that means it was the year 1894. And I wanted 2 tickets to Galesburg, Illinois. And Charlie wanted to purchase 2 tickets. Okay, one for his wife and one for him. So he wanted to purchase 2 tickets to go to where? To go to Galesburg, Illinois. What is that Galesburg and Illinois? Those are places. Galesburg, it is a city in Knox County. In the Knox County. Illinois, it is a state in the US. Okay. So Galesburg, it is a city in Illinois. Illinois, what is that? A state in the US. Okay. Have you ever been there? It's a wonderful town still, with the big old frame houses, huge lawns, and tremendous trees whose branches meet overhead and roof the trees. Here Charlie asked us, have you been to that town? Even today it is a beautiful town. It has a big frame houses. So what is that frame houses? A house constructed from wooden frame covered with timber boards. It's a frame house. So here it has a frame houses, huge lawns, garden, and very big trees. Branches of these trees meet at a height in the sky. What branches of these trees meet at a height in the sky? Just you imagine. Okay, So it's a beautiful town. It has a big frame houses, then huge gardens and very big trees. Branches of these trees meet at a height in the sky, and these branches created a kind of roof over the streets. So the branches, branches of these trees were they meet at a height, so they create a kind of roof over the streets. So the roads are covered by branches of trees and would have a shade. Okay, so here Charlie said it's a wonderful town. Even today it has a big frame houses and a huge garden, lawns and big trees. So big trees here, Charlie said about the trees. Okay, the branches of the trees, they meet at a good height in the sky. Then the branches create a roof, a kind of roof over the streets. So the roads are covered by branches of trees, and that would have a shade. Okay. And in 1894, summer evenings were twice as long, and people sat out on their lawns, the men smoking cigars and talking quietly, the women waving palm leaf fans, with the fireflies all around in a peaceful world. So here in 1894, what is given 1894, summer evenings were very long. People used to sit in their lawns, in their gardens. The men would be quietly smoking cigars. Then the women would be moving palm leaf hand fan. So why they were moving palm leaf hand fan? To help them against heat. So as it was summer, it was so heat. So the women moving a palm leaf hand fan. Okay. Then there would be fireflies around. Okay, fireflies. What is it? Fireflies, insect that shines during evenings and nights. Fireflies are insects that shines during evenings and nights. So there would be fireflies all around. It was a very peaceful atmosphere where in Galesburg. So here what is given in 1894. So summer evenings were twice as long. That means summer evenings were very long. Then people, what did they do? They used to sit in their lawns, in their gardens. So what did men do? Men, they would be quietly smoking cigars. And what would be the women doing? The women would be moving a palm leaf hand fan. Okay, for what? To help them against heat, as it was summer. Then there would be fireflies all around. So totally it was a very peaceful atmosphere. To be back there with the First World War still 20 years off, and World War II over 40 years in the future. I wanted 2 tickets for that. Here the First World War was 20 years from this date, and the Second World War was 40 years away. And Charlie had asked for 2 tickets for Galesburg, town of Illinois state. So First World War was 20 years from that date, and Second World War was 40 years away. Charlie asked how many tickets? 2 tickets. To where? To Galesburg, town of Illinois state. The clerk figured the fare. He glanced at my fancy hatband, but he figured the fare. And I had enough for 2 coach tickets one way. But when I counted out the money and looked up, the clerk was staring at me. The clerk figured the fare. Figured means calculated. The clerk calculated the fare. He glanced at my fancy hatband. He glanced, that means he looked at his fancy band on the hat. Because why he looked at his fancy band means because he hadn't seen such type of hat. So the clerk looked at his fancy hat band, but he calculated the fare. Then I had enough for 2 coach tickets. What is it? Coach ticket? Ticket for upper class. So Charlie had enough money with him for 2 tickets in upper class for one way. Okay, for one way journey. One way means one way journey. But when I counted the money and looked up, the clerk was staring at me. So when Charlie counted the money and gave it to the clerk started looking at him. So here what is given? The clerk calculated the fare. Then he looked at Charlie's fancy hatband because the clerk hadn't seen such type of hat. But he calculated the fare. So Charlie had enough money with him for 2 tickets in upper class. Coach ticket means or upper class for one way journey. Then Charlie counted the money and gave it to the clerk. Charlie saw that the clerk started looking at him. Okay. He nodded at the bills. That ain't money, mister, he said. And if you are trying to skin me, you won't get very far. And he glanced at the cash drawer beside him. Of course, the money was old style bills, half again as big as the money we use nowadays, and different looking. I turned away and got out fast. There's nothing nice about jail in even 1894. What is that? Bills? Bills means currency, notes. And then in second line is given, if you are trying to skin me. What is it? Skin, cheat. Okay, bills means currency, notes, and skin means cheat. Here the clerk looked at the currency notes. He told that these notes were not acceptable. Who told? The clerk. The clerk looked at the currency notes and he told these notes which was given by Charlie were not acceptable. And if Charlie was trying to cheat him, he would not go far away. He would be put into jail. So who said this? The clerk. After looking at the currency notes which were given by Charlie, he told those notes were acceptable, and if Charlie was trying to cheat him, he would not go far away. He would be put into jail. Then he looked at the drawer near him. Notes in the drawer were of old style, and also the size of those notes was about 1.5 times the size of money we use today. Okay. Then Charlie, he turned back and quickly came out of the station. Even during 1894, jails were bad. So here what is given? The clerk looked at the currency notes. When Charlie gave money for getting tickets, the clerk looked at the notes and he told those notes were not acceptable, and also added that if Charlie was trying to cheat him, he would not go far away, he would be put into jail. Then he looked at the drawer near him. The notes in the money in the drawer was of old style. The size of the notes also big, 1.5 times the size of notes we use today. Then Charlie, he turned back and quickly came out of the station. Even during 1894, jails were bad. I stop up to this video. Remaining paragraphs we will see in next video. Thank you.